All right, let's dive into a really tough but important question. We're going to unpack a pretty serious diagnosis from our source material that looks at something affecting billions of people. Why does the Muslim community, the Ummah, seem to stumble when it comes to its collective strength? Let's get into it.
So, right off the bat, the source hits us with this huge and, frankly, troubling question. We all know that when people work together, they can be incredibly powerful. So what's going on here? Why does that shared mission feel compromised? What's holding the community back? It's a question that really needs a deep, honest look.
And according to the analysis we're looking at, the diagnosis points to one single, really corrosive problem at the heart of it all. It's this deep-seated sense of entitlement that's taken root.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The source draws a direct parallel from the Quran. It talks about how Bani Israel received all these incredible divine favors, but over time that led to a sense of entitlement. The argument here is that the Muslim Ummah, also blessed with so much, has fallen into the exact same trap.
And this quote, this is what that entitlement actually sounds like in day-to-day life. It's this sense of complacency, right? The idea that just having the label Muslim is a free pass, that you're guaranteed to be forgiven in the end, no matter what. And it's this exact mindset that just drains all the urgency and importance out of the community's mission.
So you might be asking, how does a feeling of entitlement actually corrupt a whole mission? Well, it does it by completely flipping the community's priorities on their head and creating this profound misunderstanding of what the purpose was in the first place.
And here is the absolute crucial point from our source. The mission got turned completely upside down. The focus became all about getting individuals to perform rituals, like prayer, and just kind of hoping that justice would magically appear as a side effect. But the original mission was the exact opposite: to go out and actively establish justice in the world, to create a society where faith and worship could actually thrive. Now, this watered-down version of the mission, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It gets defended, and it's defended by doing one thing in particular: taking religious texts, especially the Hadith, and just stripping them of all their original context.
And this list just illustrates the problem perfectly. Think about it. When you hear a quote but you don't know when it was said, where it was said, what was happening at the time, or even what question it was answering, well, the meaning can get twisted into something totally different. The source argues that this has sent the community on what it calls a 1400-year wild goose chase, basically debating fragments of text while missing the entire point.
So what's the real-world consequence of all this? It's a huge shift away from caring about the collective good, society as a whole, toward this narrow, almost selfish obsession with just individual salvation. This chart really lays out the decay perfectly. Look at this. On one side, you have these huge society-level jobs, like building just political and economic systems. On the other side, that gets shrunk down to just being personally honest. The massive duty to protect the most vulnerable in society gets satisfied by just giving some individual charity. And establishing the rule of law? That becomes, I just need to fix myself. And here it is, the absolutely devastating result. When the focus becomes so internal, so individual, the community as a whole just goes quiet. Injustice, corruption, oppression, they can all run wild because the job of fighting them has been broken down into a million little pieces and basically abandoned.
Now, to keep this state of inaction going, you need justifications. You need good excuses, and over time, a whole set of them has developed. The source calls them beautiful escapes, these nice-sounding reasons that let people avoid the really hard work of the true mission.
And this isn't something that happens overnight. It's a three-step slide into paralysis. First, that feeling of entitlement kills any sense of urgency. We'll get to it later. Then, that delay creates hesitation and doubt. And finally, to make ourselves feel okay with doing nothing, we invent these really compelling stories and defenses to justify.
And I bet some of these sound familiar. The idea of just waiting for a savior figure like Imam Mahdi to come and fix everything for us. Or using those out-of-context hadith to feel comfortable instead of motivated. Or the belief that my own personal salvation is the only thing that really matters. And of course, the classic, deciding that the mission to establish justice is actually someone else's job, not mine. So all of this brings us to the very end of this diagnosis. And it all comes together in one final, deeply uncomfortable question that really challenges this whole individual-first approach to faith.
Wow. Just let that sink in for a second. That image is so powerful. Is faith really just about securing your own spot in paradise, even if it means you have to stay quiet while others suffer?
Is the goal really to climb over the necks of the oppressed, to use their suffering as a ladder to get your own ticket to heaven? It's a question that forces us to ask what our mission, what our purpose, truly is.